Good morning, students. Welcome to the IGCSE online sessions. I'm Mr. Charles, and this is the fourth lesson for the fifth week. Unit 7, believe it or not, how to spot fake news, page 161. Fake news are very much circulant nowadays because you have many sources that are now free to speak or free to write, whether it is online sources or written sources. There is a lot of facilitation for anyone who wants to be a news anchor or news reporter, regardless of their academic background, of their technical background, of the matter they are talking about. Everyone can report anything nowadays. And through or with all of these pieces of information, you have much fake news circling around. How can we spot that fake news and differentiate it from the real news that we have to read about and we have to know? First of all, you have to consider the source. This means that when you read a piece online or written a hard copy, make sure you question yourself, who is this person who is writing? Who is this site that is providing this piece of information? Is it usually credible? What is its divergence? What is it that it usually talks about? Is this its line of speech, or is this unusual to it? Read beyond. This means that get deep into the text. Don't judge a book by its cover, as they say. Dig deeper into the text. This could be done by not only reading the headline, let's say, or not reading only the first couple of lines or the first couple of words, even. Some people just read the headline and they go, wow, this is, and they start circulating the information. They start gossiping about it. No, read beyond, read on, read through. Supporting sources, check what sources have the or has the piece of news acknowledged, because right now we could present a piece of news and tell the readers that, let's say, the University of Cambridge has attested this, or a study done by the University of X. You, as a reader, check these sources, make sure that they are not made up. Ask the experts. This might be a librarian, this might be a someone who is an expert in this, let's say in the field of science. You should ask a doctor in the field of medicine if this medication works or not. Our present time example is that the president of the United States, Donald Trump, has announced that um, people who are sick with coronavirus could take the disinfectant as a cure for the coronavirus, or they could get exposed to ultraviolet light. And this has been debunked 1 hour after this coronavirus briefing speech, that this is a huge mistake. So don't take this person's word for it, this source word for it. Ask the experts that are related in that field. Check the date. This means that sometimes news gets circulated late. So when you hear a piece of news, let's say about a company, let's say losing money a lot, and then you check and it dates back 1 week ago, don't circulate the information before you check today's situation of that company, today's status, because as time progresses, difference could occur in the status of everything. So check the date of um, the piece of news that you have read before you start reading on or believing it. Check the author. Who is responsible for this piece of news? Are they real people? This is usually occurs more uh, in the online sphere, in the online news field, that you have, let's say, John Mackinson, and he wrote a piece of news about something that is going on politically. But when you search on John Mackinson, could be fake, could be an alias, could be a reference to another name, and this name does not exist. Or this person claims to be, let's say, a researcher in a certain field, but you check about him or her, and it turns out that they are nothing as they said. This is what going beyond and checking the author means. Check your biases. This means a lot of people argue that a book or a piece of news is not written for us to read it. It reads us. This means that a lot of the written word that you read reflects on your beliefs, reflects on your experiences and how you perceive that piece of written. And make sure that you don't have biases when you start reading an important piece of news. When you're writing an entertaining piece of news, it doesn't matter if you have bias or not. But if this is an argumentative piece, don't take sides before you read, because this will affect your judgment of the quality of the written piece. So make sure you don't have any biases before you start considering a written piece of argument. Is it a joke? This is this is done to differentiate between fake news and real news in regards to its level of humor, because nowadays, or since late 90s actually, it, the seriousness of some terrible news or terrible attitudes are not being addressed directly, or are not being mocked directly. They are being mocked by saying them. For example, there is a show called Family Guy, and it includes, or it involves, a lot of racism, a lot of jokes about inequality between male and female. And it actually says it the way it is, it represents it the way it is. It does not say racism is bad, it says racism is good. For you to know that this is satire, this is mocking. They are mocking this concept by saying that it's good. And if you are new to the field, if you are, let's say, angry and you have bias towards this show, you come and see that they are saying, let's say, racism is fine. You start circulating around that Family Guy is a terrible show, for example. But you should hold on and see maybe that this is a joke. Maybe they are making fun of it. Playing the devil's advocate, this is not in relation to spotting fake news, but in relation to writing true news. That is, for you to play the devil's advocate, it means that before you present a piece of information, or let's say pursue for a product, make sure you address the negative points in your head first. For example, if you want me to buy, let's say, if you are about to write a persuasive piece for me to buy a laptop from your company, X company, before you start writing this persuasive piece, check what can I say wrongly about what can I say negatively about your product, and try to debunk that, try to negate that or those negative points for you to be ready. This is playing the devil's lawyer or devil's attorney, for you to defend the negative points that are about to be said, are going to be said. This is a great persuasive technique, especially when you're writing a speech to deliver to people. Because whenever you start speaking or persuading about something, the natural instinct for many people nowadays, unfortunately, is to oppose you, is to go against you. So save yourself the trouble and save yourself the time and play the devil's advocate. Think of what bad things they could say, and then start writing or start drafting your real persuasive positive points. Colloquial expressions are also a piece of or a feature of true news or real news. Colloquial, you know that it is the language used every day. Colloquial expressions, just not words, they are phrases or sentences. For example, what is he like? This is a colloquial expression, informal expression. Get a grip, for example, which means that get a hold of yourself. And this is a colloquial expression as well, get a hold of yourself. You cannot actually grab yourself and hold it. That's not the meaning here. The meaning is take it easy, stop being so irritated, calm down. That's so random is also a colloquial expression, and it means that it came to mean nowadays this is really wild. This is really out of the ordinary. This is really fun. Give me a break. This means that I want to take a. I don't believe what you're saying, and tell it to your face. Give me a break. For this means that please stop saying this matter like this. It's not like this. The final feature of true or real news is the use of cliches. And cliches for the benefit of making the reader feel relevant and related to what you're writing and understand what you're writing. Cliches are things that are used every day, are used, these expressions are used a lot, and they reflect language. It's like a bridge between you and the reader. For example, don't rock the boat. This is an overused expression. You're beautiful like a rose. You're as beautiful as a rose. This is a cliche. This has been said many, many times that it has become mundane, ordinary. Now go to page 162, news reports and articles. Journalists, sometimes called reporters, are people who write for newspapers. Their job is to write newsworthy events. This way, or the way in which journalists write their reports or articles, depend largely on the paper they write for. Some newspapers appeal more to educated professional people who want to know what is happening in the world. Some newspapers have a more populist approach and appeal to people who just want to know what is happening in their own country or local area as a form of light entertainment. The language used for serious national and international news is usually more academic and more objective, whereas popular tabloid newspapers use a form of journalese. A journalese is a way of condensing information using modern colloquial expressions and cliches. This is what we were talking about. European news or European news, page 162 as well. Iceberg to be moved from Antarctica to solve water shortages. Plans to move an iceberg from Antarctica to the Arabian Gulf are taking shape to solve drinking water shortages in the Middle East. Try to spot from your instinct, try to spot if this is fake or real, and we'll discuss it in a minute. Bone dry Middle Eastern countries are looking south to solve their water issues, as much of the transcontinental region suffers a drought set to last the next 25 years. On the topmost water scarce areas in the world is now pinning its hopes on quenching its thirst via icebergs. Experts say an average iceberg contains over than 20 billion gallons of water, enough to hydrate 1 million people for over 5 years. Up to 4/5 of an iceberg's mass is underwater. So, due also to their vast density, theoretically they won't melt in the boiling climate of the Middle Eastern coastline. The project, set to begin in early 2018, could take a while to get going, however, as dragging the iceberg to its new location could take up to a year. Plans are in place to chip cubes off the iceberg over the waterline, then crush them into pure polarized drinking water. Apart from the functional use of the ice in a drinking glass, experts say relocating an iceberg like this could also bring about climate change for the region, as cold air gushes out into the hot Arabian Sea air, causing year round rainstorms across the region. By J. Reader, 22 September 2017. Before we get to decide if this was real or fake news, another way to read a piece of news is to look for what is absent from it. Sometimes what is not in the text can be as important as what is. Once you look at the story from the other side, you may comprehend it better. For example, in the iceberg story, if you imagine the means and how difficult it is to drag while maintaining the shape and the amount of the iceberg from Antarctica to the Middle East, could help you understand the probability and time frame of accomplishing such a task. If you do not imagine this, what this means that is that if you don't imagine how difficult it is to drag this iceberg, you will not be able to estimate how many years it's going to take or how many months. You could, if you don't estimate how big the iceberg is and how far um, the Antarctica from the Middle East, and how difficult it is to drag it from all of its sides into that area while maintaining its perfect shape, you will not be able to estimate the benefit of this. You will not be able to estimate the cost of this. You, as a regular reader, we're not talking professional, responsible person. So look for the absent pieces. They did not mention any of that in the text. But for you to comprehend better this piece of information, regardless of what it is, try to see it from the other side as well. Writing to express thoughts and opinions, the iceberg report, fake news or not. You may jot down your points of why is this fake if you think it is, why is this not fake if you think it is not, and then tell me another piece of evidence from the text that supports your opinion. So give us two pieces of evidence that supports it is fake, two pieces that support it's not fake, and then another one piece to support your stance, what you believe. If you think it's fake, one, it could be because of the fishy name, the suspicious name, European news. It's like saying Kurdistan news. This name is kind of fishy because it's not professional. It sounds like an amateur name. Imagine Google company. It projects news to the public from a website called Google News or Google What's Important in Google. This is too of an amateur. Another reason for us, or another piece of evidence for us to believe that it is fake news, is that there are no sources mentioned. There are no sources of ministries that will be involved in this, companies that will oversee this, or specific people, the name of a person that will that was interviewed, that was checked, nothing. Why is this, or why does this may be considered as real news? Because it presents logical information. From the beginning, how hot and short on water the Middle East is. This is logical information. This is true. And also, it presents comprehensive information, fairly comprehensive information. At the beginning, it begins with a problem and then continues with a solution. It tells us that the Middle East is very hot, short on water, and then it first drought or the next drought will last 25 years, and then gives a solution that is dragging the iceberg, and then consequences that this will affect the climate there. So this is a fairly comprehensive uh, projection of information, problem, solution, effects. For me, this is strictly your opinion, but for me, this piece of news was fake because it has no official or technical sources mentioned in it. This could be a real piece. This could be, let's say, a real event that they are thinking of dragging something, and most probably to United Arab of Emirates, because I'm guessing this is very costly, and this country can take care of it, or this Emirates can take care of it. But this piece, though the information could be true, but this piece of news, this article, looks fake because it failed to mention any official sources regarding this. Evoking human interest. What does that mean? Whether to inform or to entertain, journalists try to make their reports more personal in order to evoke readers' anger or sympathy, or just to make the events more understandable. For example, imagine a report on financial crisis. This human interest, evoking human interest, would be to interview people who have lost big amounts of money or property. Or imagine a report on natural disasters. Evoking human interest would be to interview people or to take the opinions of people who have went through the heaviest aftermath, the heaviest losses. So you are playing, you gave us the piece of information. If you are trying to report on a natural disaster, for you to stay without evoking human interest is that you tell us what happened. A hurricane happened in this area, let's say, or occurred in this area, and this much or this many casualties happen, and the authorities are considering rebuilding in a week or 2 weeks. But for you to evoke a human interest is for you to write what, let's say, person X that lost their house. What did they say about this catastrophe? If you are reporting a financial crisis, let's say, in the world now because of the coronavirus status, a lot of companies are losing money. A lot of people are short on money as well. So for you to write this piece of news without evoking human interest, you just state facts of how is this a financial crisis. But for you to evoke sympathy and anger towards, let's say, governments, you would say, you would write the story or the reference of, let's say, person Y who have not, or who has not tasted meat for a whole month now, or who has lost all of their savings in this crisis. This is how you evoke a human interest. We're done for today. Thank you very much for listening. Stay safe and keep up the good work.